I'm welcoming you here in my studio. It's like a recording studio. I'm sharing with another guy and saxophone player, Bart Weerts, and Crack and Smack guy, Oscar. And I'm after the talk, I'm gonna do a little small tour in the facilities we have here. Awesome. Rogier's gonna say it on.
Thank you, Lucas. First of all, welcome, and just a small introduction. You may not know me yet, but I'm the coordinator of the minor music studies, and sometimes I used to do a lecture about pop music within, among others, Carlos's course, Popular Global Music. But this time I thought, well, someone who's much further than me in this whole pop world, who's been doing it basically all his life, is my friend Ben Samama here. And he's now in the Netherlands. He works and lives in LA, as he will tell you. But I thought it was a perfect opportunity to have someone really informed about this stuff talk to you about it. So like today's pop music, basically, today's songwriting. I prepared some questions. I don't know. We'll see how many of these will be relevant for Ben or what he thinks about them. But feel free to give short.
That's a bad question.
Feel free to give short or longer answers, however you
cut me up when I start bullshitting too much.
Yeah, for sure. So, what I found when I kind of dove into pop music, first of all by listening to it, but also like talking to other people about it who had an interest, reading about it, watching all the videos, learning how to produce, because I used to be in a band, I can play guitar and keys, but I had no idea how music was made like now, you know. That if you have a laptop, you can basically produce pop music. Then it's just all skills. But then I found out, wow, there's a whole hidden world of professional pop music creators behind it that you would never think of, that you would never think of, and if a member of the general audience in pop music listens to a song on Spotify, for instance, on a streaming service, they would see the title of the song, they would see the artist name, and that would be about it. Maybe the picture of the artist or of the cover of the album. And that would be it to them. And maybe there's kind of an idea of the fans of pop music that their artists are singing their own songs, and this is just their thing. And cool, you know everything you need to know. But basically, there's a whole super well organized, hyper specialized world of professionals behind it that are needed to create music of this kind, of this quality. However you describe quality, maybe some people are like adamantly against pop music, or have all kinds of very strong opinions. I found out about pop music, and but there was this hidden world, this hidden thing that was happening underneath that interested the hell out of me. So I decided to dig in deeper, and what I saw is that also Spotify realized that this couldn't stand for much longer. They had the credits at least listed at a certain point. Like if you want to really look it up, you can look it up for each song that you are listening to and you're more interested in. Who made it? So you will look up the credits on Spotify and you'll see the songwriters listed and the producer or producers listed. That was not enough for those songwriters and producers, because they are basically what the whole pop industry starts with. There's no pop music now thinkable without guys like Ben. It starts from a song, and the song has to be written by someone, and it has to be more than a good song. It has to be special. So there's no artist careers, there's no venues full of fans, there's no people dancing to popular songs. It all has to start from a song. So what Spotify did is they gave those people creating the music their own website, their own page, so you can see if you click on a name, whoa, there's a whole bunch of songs that this person has created. For instance, there's a page now for Ben's work that lists all of his like hits, like big songs, and so they at least now there's a bit. If you want to know more about it, there's a bit more information about this hidden world. But if we want to know even more than that about the hidden world of pop music, of the pop song, we have to talk to an insider, and today we have Ben here. Would you permit me to read your bio from your publisher?
Oh God!
Because because
half of that shit is bullshit. First of all.
Okay. Half of this shit is bullshit. I'm gonna read it anyway.
But it's because LA lives on bullshit, so they just want it to sound as good as possible. When I read my own bio, I don't feel like it's me; it's someone else.
But let's just for the fuck of it, let's hear it. Based out of Los Angeles, CA, Samama is a Grammy-nominated songwriter-producer. His strengths lie in his songwriting, vocal production, and incredible pop sensibilities. A tireless worker, this you have confirmed to me. He has 2 songs currently going to pop radio, as well as songs on Spotify's Global, USA and UK Top 50. Multiple New Music Fridays, has hit #1 in multiple countries. Samama, aka Ben Samama, is actively working with the producers and writers behind most of the top acts you hear on pop radio. Responsible for over 900 plus million plays. Well, this is old.
How old is this one?
This is very old because it's like over 2 billion.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, fun.
So yeah, for you Dutch speakers, strangely
Milliard.
Milliards. It translates to milliards. So 2000 million. Samama is quickly developing into a force to be reckoned with in pop songwriting. So yeah, give him a warm welcome, Ben.
It's funny when you hear that because it makes it sound like I'm really good at what I do, but I don't feel like I don't know. I feel like I'm still learning every day. I feel like I'm barely at like 50% of where your career can be because I'm surrounded by legends in LA. And if you're living there and you see them like having a #1 with Ava Max or a #1 with Maroon 5, and I'm like, why am I not there? You know what I mean? So it's nice to hear that, I'm considered successful, but I don't feel like that at all. But apparently it's been told that everyone feels like that at all times. So regardless of where you are, you always feel like you're never there. You're always like 2 steps. 2 steps later, I'll be happy. I'll be successful. If I can do X, then I'll be successful. And then by that time, if I can do Y, I'll be successful. So you'll never feel that way, which is something I have to tell myself because I'll never feel that way. I feel like I'm barely starting.
So enjoy the process then.
I'm trying.
Yeah,
it's hard. I'm trying to enjoy it, but
there's a lot of suffering in professional music.
And it's on your head, is what I'm trying to say. The suffering is on here. It has nothing to do with whether you can do your job or not. I think LA specifically, and this is very specific to the city of LA and Hollywood, they love to make you feel like you have to work harder and you're always missing out on what's happening over there because these guys are cool. You're not cool. These guys are cool. Why aren't you there? You know what I mean? Anyway, nice to meet you. I feel very un-Dutch when I say that stuff. But it's been a long time.
It's been a long time, yeah. You started studying at the Royal Conservatoire in Den Haag.
Yeah.
And by then you were already writing songs.
Trying, yes.
Which was quite rare there because people there are training for like playing an instrument or singing for performative arts. What made you pursue songwriting instead of singing as your major was jazz vocals?
I hate performing with a passion. And I realized that halfway through Berkeley, or halfway through conservatory. But they didn't have an option of not being a performer, so you have to do it. And I hated every second on stage. And I realized at the end of my tenure there, I did 3 years at the conservatory, I just wanted to do a final exam that was more akin to the music I loved back then, which is like Al Green and Alain Clark in Holland, who's a fantastic artist, and I love his music so much. And I thought, if I can do that for my final exam, I don't have to do jazz, because that was the major. I just wanted to do like an Alain Clark type of show, and I spent a year writing, arranging, orchestrating, basically the entire thing in Logic in my laptop. And I had so much fun doing that. And then when it came time to rehearse, I hated every second of it. And when it came time to perform, I hated every second of it. And I realized maybe this is not for me. Maybe the writing part is more for me. So they gave me a scholarship to go to Berkeley. And then they straight up told me, there's a career for just being a writer. And I was like, really? This weight lifted off my shoulders. And I never looked back. It's the best decision I ever made. And what's funny is that 90% of everyone who's a writer in LA or in London secretly wants to be famous, secretly wants to be an artist, and I'm one of the few that doesn't. There's a few of me out there that just want to be in the background, that just want to be invisible and just write every day. Most people want to be famous, most people want to be artists, and they're secretly like frustrated artists that through writing think they can finally get on stage and get a get the fame and the fortune. I just want to write. I hate performing so much. Long answer. Sorry.
Oh no, that's great to hear.
Yeah. Do I have to speak up or am I good? You good?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you left to Berkeley and you got this word that this could be a career for you.
Yeah.
So take us like in a nutshell from then to where you are now.
12 years. Jesus.
Yeah, just what if you would
14.
like sum it down.
Sum it down to 2 years at Berkeley. I made a lot of friends there. I was on scholarship, so I didn't have to pay for it because Berkeley is the most expensive school you can go to. So mostly rich kids. I did 2 years there. Then all my friends moved to New York, so I followed them, but I couldn't afford it. I started a company in EDM called Hit Vocals. That was my way of making rent money, which is there is an industry of like touring DJs all over Europe, and they basically pay me up front to write songs for them, and then they release it. I did 3 years of that in order to get my O1 visa. In that time, I think I've written maybe 500 songs for the industry and then sold 150 of them. All those would pay me up front. I would get no publishing. And they would call me a bread writer. So I'm not really working towards a career. I'm just making rent, basically. I did that for 3 years until I had a burnout. Then moved to LA. I saved up enough to move to LA with my then girlfriend, who's now my wife. And we started over in LA, and it's been 7 years basically climbing the pop industry ladder very, very slowly and very securely. And 7 years later, we're here, basically. So in a nutshell, starting over constantly. Finally figuring out what do I really want to do. Do I want to make a living and make rent and that's it? Or do I want to build some kind of longevity career? And that was the hard step I had to take. And it was lucky that all my friends from Berkeley also made the same moves, so I never did it by myself. I always felt like I had a community around me, which made it less scary. But I never would have done that if I hadn't gone to Berkeley, and if I hadn't had the scholarship that conservatory gave me. So it's all these like lucky little steps. If one thing didn't happen, all these other things wouldn't have happened as well. So I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for all these little things. I don't know if I'd be better at my job or if I'd be doing my job at all. If I stayed at Holland, I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. Who the fuck knows? Sorry. I cussed. Sorry. Was that a good answer?
That was exactly.
I bullshit a lot, so you can stop me and
I
say.
could already ask 100 questions about some stuff that you passed on okay. Let's keep it
Sure.
I'm thinking about the work of a songwriter, of a professional songwriter. What does your typical working day look like?
I was very lazy, actually. It's great. Working hours don't start until 1 p.m. So I can around until 1. Then you work for like 5 hours, and then you're basically done. It's a very, very short work day. However, with that comes everything that comes after, which is going out for dinner with people, and networking, and meeting new people, and going to concerts. And the actual work, if you do one session a day, which most people do, but if you want to do more, you can do 2 a day, 3 a day if you're crazy. 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. That's it. You create a song in that time. It can be great, or it can be fully produced, or it can just be a guitar demo. But at least you feel like you've done your job that day. What's interesting is that within the LA pop industry, you're expected to have a finished product by that time. And a lot of people feel the pressure to do that, even though I don't know if it's any good. Maybe it takes a week to write a great song, and it doesn't really matter how long it takes to write a great song as long as you get the product. But in LA, for some reason, 5 hours, that's the limit, and you have to have finished the record by then. And then you walk away said, I did my job today.
But why do...
No idea. I don't know why that is. Who decides that?
Can you not go back later in the week if you don't have a session planned and finish that song?
Yes, you can, of course. You can always go back, but for some reason, LA has this weird jujutsu on their head that you hadn't had a successful day if you didn't walk away with a song.
Yeah, it has to be ready to go to radio like tomorrow.
I mean, hypothetically. Obviously, you do a lot of production afterwards, and if it's a great song, then, or if it's a great nudge it of an idea, you can come in afterwards and show it to A&Rs, and they're like, oh, we love it for this artist, flip the entire production on its head. But for some reason, taking 3 days to write one song doesn't exist in LA. They feel like they wasted a day.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't happen because no one gives a about 200 good songs. They want one hit. So if it takes a year to write one hit song, then you did your job. But for some reason, if you didn't walk away after 5 hours with something sensible, then people feel like they wasted their day. It's really dumb. It makes no sense.
Does it come down to the initial concept that you wrote a song on? If you would even consider finishing it or just throwing it away, saying, well, that was not an A+, so let's move on.
Yeah, but who? Well, this is a complicated question. Then you get to the point of what is good, right? What is an A+? A+ means hit record.
Yeah.
Hit record is not the same as a good song. It's a completely different entity.
So you're trying to write the hit record every day again.
Yes, which is very tiring because the idea of what a hit record is so vague and so wishy-washy and so unknowable that everyone kind of walks in with a ton of anxiety, said, are we going to get it today? Right? And what it is anything but a good song. Here's the thing. Everyone in LA is a good songwriter because otherwise you wouldn't be there. Good is useless. No one cares about good. Good means you've done your job, you've done your time, you know what a chorus is, you know what a verse is. No one cares because 1,000 of those are written every day by the industry that I work in. And you can't release 1,000 songs a day because no one would care. So you have to write a hit record, but what that is vague and confusing and constantly changing, and no one really knows what it means. But you know when you hear it, and everyone gets about 3 of those a year. You can't force it. You can't say, I'm going to get 5 this year because I'm better at my job. Nope, that's not how it works, unfortunately. Which means that you kind of sit there and you kind of look around and you try to keep the vibe fun, you try to talk to people, and you try to pretend like you're having a great time, even if you aren't, or if you are, you have a great time. You walk away with ostensibly a good song because nobody sucks in LA. Everyone's good. And then you think afterwards, is this great? And then that's when the real nail biting becomes because you don't know if it is great or not. You start showing it to all your friends. What do you think of this? You start showing it to all your A&R friends. What do you think of this? Or your publisher or your manager. And everyone has opinions. And a lot of them are stupid because no one really knows what they're talking about in the first place because it's art. No one knows what's good. And then eventually you're like, well, this is the one. This might be the one. And then you show it around to an artist that you really respect and that you try to get to. And if it's not the one, then you just close that door. And they'll never listen to you again until you have a huge hit record and then everyone wants to talk to you again. So it's constantly like, is this the one that I'm putting my entire career?
You're putting your money on this.
Is this the one I'm putting my money on? Is this the idea that I'm going to base my career off of? And it's very, very nail-biting. And it's very anxious, anxiety-inducing.
I would imagine.
For anyone that takes a shot on you. For example, I have a record with, I don't know if anyone cares about the DJ world, but I have a record with Tock, right? And Tock is a big DJ name. And it's the only reason I have that record with Tock is because an A&R at Atlantic heard it and said, I will stake my career on this. Of all the 1,000 songs you hear every year, this is the one I'll stake my career on. Why? I know, but I'll take it. You know what I mean? We had a good day. Apparently, he loved it. He decided, this is the one, I will get fired if this isn't a hit, because he's putting his career on this one song.
Was he planning to release it for Topic as a DJ with a guest vocalist, or were you the feature?
Well, I'm not a feature. No, my demo vocal is on it, and then they had someone else re-record.
Yeah.
Someone famous, let's say.
Who was that?
The guy in the DJ world that's famous, A7S.
Yeah. They had more hits together, right? Topic and A7S.
Well, yeah, it gets complicated now because it was supposed to be a Chesto record with A7S. And then Topic is going to do it, but Topic doesn't want to do more releases with A7S, so now it's going to be someone else. But now we are in a time bind because they want to release it by January. But if we have to find a different artist, then it's going to take more time. Anyway, this gets really detailed and complicated. No one cares. The point is that here's this one song that I did in 2 hours 6 months ago. Out of 8, because I write 200 songs a year, right? So out of 200 that I did this year, this is the one that for some reason everyone cares about. Why? I don't know. Did I knew it at the time? No. But all of a sudden, all of Atlantic Records is like, this is the one. And is it because they know what they're talking about? No, it's because one A&R with a big ego decided, I will stake my career in this. And everyone trusts him because he has track record of stuff that did well recently or before. So now he will stake his career in this because he decided that he loved it, and now everyone agrees with him because they're too afraid to say no. And I just got lucky that this one guy decided he likes this. And why did I get there? Because my publisher is friends with him. So it's politics, timing, luck, 1 in 200. All the other songs I do, everyone hates because they don't know why.
Yeah, they're good, but they're not the hit.
Yeah, but what's the difference? Again, it comes back to what's a hit versus what's a good song?
Yeah.
I don't fucking know.
No one knows.
No one knows until someone with a lot of power decides that that's a hit song. And now everyone either has to agree with him or has to fight him on it. It makes no sense, and I still don't understand it.
A song has no chance of being released until like the A&R, the artist, the songwriters, everyone is on board, right?
Yes. Well, with a major label. You can release as many songs as you want with...
As an independent.
As an independent. Yeah. If you want to put it on Spotify, you can do it today. But if you're trying to make radio, which is the entire reason I'm doing this, because songwriters don't make any money unless you hit radio, right? So you can have 1 billion plays on Spotify, but it never hit radio, I'm still not making rent, right? That's just the reality of it. So it has to hit radio in some kind of shape or form, or it has to be on a trailer, so it's called a sync song. It has to be in a movie trailer, or it has to be in a TV show, whatever, then we all get paid a lot. But a song in my industry doesn't make any money for anyone unless it hits radio, which means major label, which means A&R with big egos, which means somebody's taking $1 million on this, right? Which is a lot of pressure for us, because every day we have to pretend like we're doing one of those records. We're gonna create a hit today, guys. No one knows. But that's why you have to do as many as you can, because we just don't know which one it's gonna be. I think that day we wrote 4 songs. Not that any other ones are better or worse. It's just that specific one got lucky. Why? I don't know.
Yeah, because it's very chaotic. Because the first audience of that song, outside of your circle of creators, was that A&R that was willing to stake his career on it.
Yes.
And
Yeah, and if it wasn't for that day, he didn't happen to hear it that day because he was the one overseeing that session. It might have been nothing.
Exactly.
It's super confusing, and also you just don't know when it's going to happen. I mean, luck is such a huge part of the job, which is frustrating because you'd rather it not be luck. You'd rather be skill, or I'm better at my job because I'm better at it now. I've done more practice. I've made my time. I've done my 10,000 hours, right? But really, no, because I could have gone lucky 5 years ago.
Exactly.
But I'm getting lucky this year. Why? Who the knows?
Yeah, exactly.
No one
knows. That's a frustrating way of not having total control over the outcome of the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
I heard, for instance, that for the creative people that are behind the pop songs, so who are they? The songwriters, the producer, they make music,
right?
That's about the track.
Yeah.
The A&R not, they just select.
Well, they're creative in the way that A&Rs are interesting because 90% of their job is politics, and then the other 10% of their job is taking a chance on a record. So they're creative in that way because their creation is grabbing this vague thing that's a song, which is usually like a phone recording of a dude who can't sing, like me, on a piano that sounds bad, but the lyric is fresh and new or whatever, and then say, that's the one. That's their creation.
Yeah, that's their creation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's more curating than actually adding something to the song.
Knowing what's cool or what's going to be cool next year.
Yeah.
Which is, again, no one really knows.
And then you have the artist. If the song is released, then someone has to sing it, that usually is going to be the artist, like the face of the whole thing to the outside world. Mm-hmm. So they are creatively involved by having their voice on there.
A lot of times they keep the chorus and they do the verses again.
Yeah.
So the hardest part of a song is writing the chorus, and the hardest part of the chorus is writing the hook line, right? And the hook line is the title usually. It's also the thing that everyone remembers, right? We're just ordinary people. We don't know which way to go, right? I don't know the rest of the song, but you know that record. You know that line. That line is the only line that matters. That's also the hardest one to write because, try do it again. No one can do it. But that's the line everyone knows.
Yeah.
And then if you give that to John Legend, for example, then he'll say, I love that. I'm going to write my own verses because I'm going to make it personal to me. And then that way I've done my job and he does his part where he makes it personal, or he has his own songwriters and then he can do it together. So a lot of times when A&R say, hey, we want hit records for this artist, what they want is a hook line or a chorus, a hit chorus that then they can give to the artist and say, okay, make it yours. And then reproduce it, change it again, make it so whatever production, you can change the whole production 4 times over.
But you try anyway to send them a fully finished thing, right? That with verses there and...
You have to because that's expected, but a lot of times it doesn't really matter.
No.
If you have a hit chorus, a lot of times A&Rs will notice it, they'll see it. And then they'll say, hey, can you send me the stems or can you send me the chord progression? And then they'll have their guys finish it, for example.
let's go into the hitness of a chorus later. Do you? Yeah, who knows? Do you write will you write any kind of pop song, or are you like specialized in a certain type of song, certain type of style of music, or certain type of topic or lyric?
Pop means popular, means good melody. Usually, unless you're doing like punk or whatever. I don't like the modern punk thing. Not because it's not good, it's just because it wasn't my background. Like the entire Machine Gun Kelly revival and all that stuff. Listen, you can love it, that's totally fine. I just don't like it, right? And then I have to live in LA and pretend like I love it because that's where everyone is right now. And it's going to be over in a year, so it's fine.
However, 2.5 years you told me, we were talking about where do you see this thing going, the sound of pop. And you said, well, in two years, we're writing now stuff that's going to come out in 2 years and it's going to sound like, how did you say it? Like pop.
Something mean, probably.
Pop with guitars.
Yeah.
You were right. Mm-hmm. Guitars everywhere now.
Yeah.
And it's going to sound like a Pink song, but on steroids and cool.
Oh, hyperpop. So hyperpop has been the new thing for years, and no one really knows when it's going to break. It broke a little bit with the Stay record for...
that's hyperpop.
It's just fast.
It's just fast.
It's just faster. It feels more like an 80s record, except with guitars. Whatever that means, you know what I mean? Hyperpop was and still is a genre that everyone thinks is going to be next. It's just boom. It's this fast, you know what I mean? But then Harry Styles did it with like soft indie guitars, and now everyone thinks that's the new thing, right? No one really knows. Everyone's constantly guessing what the new thing is going to be. I know that now that MGK and 24K Golden and all those like emo dudes, they've been angry with guitars for about 3 years. At some point, people are going to be bored of that because, you know, people get bored quick. And then most likely the opposite is going to happen. So it's all going to be happy, whatever that means. So I can, for example, if anyone knows Galantis, the artist, DJ, the big single that we have in March is like the happiest song in the planet. It's like super smiley, you know what I mean? And that was the point because everyone's sad. So now we get to go really happy, 180 flip, let's say, and then we're guessing, we're hoping that that's going to break the new genre where everything's really smiley and happy. But who knows? Maybe it's going to flop. Who knows? No one has a clue.
Is it coming in March?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
I can play it for you. It's fun.
Do it.
Oh, no. Let's see. Again, one of those records that I didn't think much of when we did it because who the f*** knows? We wrote it. Let me see if I can find a list first. It's a link. I sent it to my team. They all thought it was whatever. Nobody liked it. The A&Rs didn't like it. Everyone thought it was just one of those we don't give a shit records, right? That's really annoying. Let me see if I can find like a demo of it. Oh, here it is. So. No, that's just the vocals. Sorry. Let me see. Here's an older version. I think it's an older version. But the point is, again, when you talk about like records that do well, I wrote it on Zoom during the pandemic with 4 other people. I wasn't supposed to join that session because my session got canceled, and then they're like, "Hey, want to join this one?" Sure, whatever. Again, you don't know. We did a song that sounded like Empire of the Sun because that was what they told us they wanted for another artist, different artist. And then we ended up with this one, again, 1 of 200 per year. I usually forget what I do. I put it in a list that I send to my publisher, and they listen to 10 songs every 2 weeks, or every 2 weeks, and then they decide we hate this, we hate this, we hate this, we like this, we hate this, we hate this, we like this. Sure. They hated that one. But my Atlantic hated that one. Everyone hated it because they hate most things because no one knows what's happening. Then my publisher, Nick, who is a very famous producer, was the only one who said, "I love this." Why? I don't know. I love it. And he texted it to Christian, who is Galantis. No one else took a chance on it. He took a chance on it. Christian said, "This is the single." And this is a year ago. Since then, I've been waiting for people to say, "Oh, by the way, we're bored of it now." But they keep saying, "We still the one, it's still the one, it's still the one." And I'm waiting to hear it's not the single anymore. Because usually that's what happens. You have like 10 songs that are supposed to be big hits. and all of them eventually get kicked off because something new and shiny arrives, right? Timing is a big part of it. But for some idiotic reason, this one still is the single and it comes out in March. And it's the opposite of like, I mean, it's Galante, so you kind of know what it sounds like, but it's the opposite of like all the really, really sad white boys with guitars that's been happening in LA.
And you might think, what the fuck? Hello? Bro.
So I'm climbing out that window, sending out that signal. Doing what we want. Night dancing to dawn. With the psycho sense of violence. Going up to space, got some glitter on my face. TV, skipping all my problems like a CD. Got me raising higher than a ceiling. We got the dream team.
Happy as fuck. Right? Whether it's a great song, I don't think so. I think it's okay. It's just fresh. It's new. And that's really all that matters. It's new and it doesn't suck. That's kind of the game. But finding what is new, because new is vague and no one really knows what new really means, that's the hard part. That's the mind-breakingly anxious part, because no one knows what new is going to mean. You know what I mean? But we got lucky that day. Again, this is number 2 in 1 year. You usually get 2 or 3 a year. But when I did it, I didn't think it was that good. I was like, whatever, move on, next one. Yeah. And also I've heard it 1,000 times, so I'm really bored of this one.
It could use a bit better production, because now it's kind of placeholder demo-ish.
No, this is it. That's the beauty of it, right? When I heard this, I was like, can we add some more stuff to it, please?
Did Galantis produce this, or his ghostwriter?
Yeah.
This is a fully finished production for radio.
I mean, basically, yeah. I mean, it needs to be mixed properly, and there's a different singer on it, because it's not me. This is me.
Okay.
This is me with Alter Boy on it, but...
Really?
Well,
Wow.
yeah, there's 8 of me.
That's amazing, because you sound suddenly like a
kid?
punk kid singer.
Yeah, I mean, to me it was a tired mix of Iconopop and Hello by what's his face.
Hello.
Right? Right. It just sounded like something people have done before. It didn't feel that unique to me, and for some reason they all believe in it. I'll take it. But what they did is we recorded Neon Trees, if anyone knows that band. It was from like 10 years ago. We recorded Tyler, the singer, and he gave us exactly 30 minutes. He walked in, he recorded, and he off again, and then we had to piece it together. But he sounded really angry because it's way up in his register, so we basically took his lead vocal down and kept all this in, all these like really happy vocals. So it's 8 times me and 1 times Tyler. And that's the mix.
The perfect blend.
That's the perfect blend. So now it's Galantis featuring the entries, but it's mostly featuring 8 times my happy ass vocal with the entries like tucked all the way in there because he sounded so angry. Because it was way too high for him. So we had to like really reach.
But you also went like to singing higher through the years, right? You used to not do that.
If you're trying to pitch to pop artists, a lot of them are tenors, right? So you have to learn to do that range.
The Bieber range.
That's really hard. Yes, I can't sing like that, obviously, so I have to get as close as I can. And because my natural voice is low, I'm a bass baritone in conservatory terms, I had to learn how to talk high and sing high and all that stuff just to be able to do my job better. But also, again, no one really gives a f***. So if when you're singing with a demo singer and he has a low voice, but it sounds better in his range at a certain range, like they'll say, fuck it, take the key down. If they love the song, because everyone knows a good song when they hear it, or if they love it so much that they're willing to take a shot on it, they'll take the key up. They'll say, hey, we love it, can you re-record at +2, or can you, whatever, like take the key up a little bit and then they re-record it. At this point, it doesn't really matter as much anymore. At a certain level, when you're working with A&Rs that know what they're doing, they'll know when a song is good and then it doesn't have to be finished.
No.
like fully finished. But that also depends, again, chaotically, it depends per A&R, depends per label, depends per style. Some styles need fully finished tracks before you even show it to the label, and some of them, literally, I send them phone recordings. And then they're like, oh, I love it. All right, cool. Just depends who you're talking to, and you have to know who you're talking to. It's really weird, it makes no sense. It's easier when you're talking to someone who just wants a phone recording, because then you don't have to sit there for a week obsessing over a track that they're going to hate because the lyric isn't good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I always feel bad for producers, because they spend so much time on something that is a complete wasted song.
Yeah, to talk about that, like the producer typically in his world is doing the music, right? Is doing actually thinking what should the whole band play. There's no band, of course. There's just samples and virtual instruments, etc. The story about a song that came out this year, which was huge on TikTok and I think everywhere, ABCDEFU.
I know the guys who wrote that, yeah.
Yeah, they gave that to a bunch of producers and they made a bunch of versions and they all got dumped.
And then Pete did it.
And then Pete did it. The final guy did it, and then the girl who was the artist actually, and their A&R, Gail, and their A&R, they liked that production, and then it came out with that production. That happens a lot. So. Yeah. Even if your song is great, it's going to go through 20 versions of production.
Well, I did that. I produced a Snap record, the one called Snap by Rosalind, the one that's big in Europe right now. I produced that one. Except it took me off last minute and someone else did it. So all I have is like 1 point on the master for vocal production, because I had to record her over Zoom while she was in Armenia, had shit connection, and I literally had to I had to vocal produce her, mostly like her pronunciation, because she's Armenian, so her pronunciation is pretty shit. I had to tell her how to pronounce the lyric while her assistant was holding an iPhone in the vocal booth, and I couldn't hear her sing over the track because the Wi-Fi was bad. But I spent a week on that track, and the A&R kept telling me, flip it upside down, make it this, make it more that, and then last minute, because it was for Eurovision said, actually, can we make it folksy? And that was at night. I was sleeping. They said, who do we ask now? So they had some random dude in Armenia redo it. And that's the version you hear.
That's what it's going to be released. That's what it was released with.
That's the version you hear. Yeah, that's the version.
With your vocal production on it, of her voice?
My vocal coaching.
Vocal coaching.
Yeah, and then, but I still got paid for the work, of course. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, no one knew that was going to be a big song. I thought it was fine. This is like a folksy whatever, right? I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was that good, to be honest, but I got paid, so I was happy. And now it's a hit. But the label didn't know either. They just thought, let's get anything, because she now is on Eurovision. You need to get a song now, quick. What's the one she likes the most? That one. All right, sweet, let's do that one. Right? That song was 4 years old, written by a friend of mine in LA. She didn't think it was anything. Nobody knows what's happening, right? That's the point. You don't know what's going on, but then when you get lucky, in my case, I got lucky that they asked me to produce it, and then I got unlucky because they kicked off my entire production. But I still get a point, so I get to brag about it. You know what I mean? I get to say on my Instagram, I did that song, or I was part of that song, even though my name is not on the credits on Spotify, because I'm not actually on that song, but I still get to talk about it. With Nappy, yeah, he was one of the 5 producers that got sent that beat, and he did a fantastic job because he's incredible at that stuff. But again, I don't think it really matters because the song is so special. It's a little gimmicky, but
it would have been a hit with a different producer.
Yeah, it would have been a hit with anyone. I don't think it matters.
Okay.
Right? Because
ABCDEFU, cool concept. Okay.
But then everything else around it is solid as hell. It's super country, right? It's Nashville as fuck, which I don't think anyone in LA would have written that stuff because it's so gimmicky, right? And now it's a hit, so everyone's like, obviously it's fantastic. But if you would hear that before, and you don't think, and you don't know if it's going to be a hit, then you would think, that's a little try hard, right? That's a little gimmicky, little country. But that's the thing, you don't know. It's incredibly clever.
What makes you call it country?
This gets very complicated and very detailed. Currently, LA writing versus country writing, Nashville writing. I have a friend of mine who's a Nashville writer, and she sends me stuff all the time, and all I think about is like, who says that in real life? Right? Like, too clever, too written. It sounds like someone sat there with a guitar and said like, what if I talk about my jeans, right? And, sorry, this is really mean. LA writing specifically is very, very tailored towards, would you tell your girlfriend this on the phone, yes or no? Would you actually say this? would a real person say this, but then a little bit more clever, right? As opposed to I'm walking around the street and there's a clever line here, and then I see a car and there's a clever line here, and everything is a twist on words, and it's all very, very well crafted, but no one talks like that. But in country, they love that shit. And in LA, they think that's lame, and vice versa, right? So I can hear a country song. Like whenever a country writer is trying to do a pop song, it doesn't work, it feels cheesy. And vice versa, when an LA writer tries to do a country song, it sounds stupid because it sounds like it's a stupid writer, like a writer who doesn't know what the hell they're doing. And it's all, and again, if you don't notice these things, if you don't know the intricacies of what makes something cool in LA versus what makes something cool in Nashville, then you don't notice that stuff. You're like, oh, whatever, it's more lyrics. Or like a writer in London, for example, is very cheesy in LA. And in LA, that shit is way too vague. So my publisher, who's from London, thinks all the stuff I write with LA writers way too weird. He's like, dude, why the hell are you talking about metaphors and shit? Shut up, just tell me what you're feeling. What's happening right now? But if you show these lyrics in LA, they're like, bro, that's so cheesy. You can't show this around with it, right? And it's all, the intricacies are so small and specific, but to us, they're huge because we've been living for 10 years. It's, I don't know how to explain it. It's like someone trying to do a Tarantino movie, and you can tell it's not real because it's not Tarantino. It's doing like a Tarantino pastiche. Does it make sense? Mm-hmm. I bullshit a lot, by the way. If none of this makes sense, please tell me and I'll start over and I'll simplify it, right? Because I realize that I'm living in this very tiny bubble of people that do this one thing very well, which means that we only talk about the super tiny specific details of like, why the f*** is this cool? Well, dude, because like the way she's saying, right? And then that doesn't mean anything to real people, right? Because you guys don't give a shit about what happened in the background of making the song. They just think, do you like it? Yes. Do you not like it? No. Sweet. Done. My wife is a landscape architect. She doesn't give a f*** about pop music. So when I show her something, she's like, I like it. Yeah, but like the way we did the clever twist on the chorus line. She's like, I don't know. I like it. I don't like it. Why? I don't know. But that's everyone. That's the real world. The real audience doesn't know why they like something. They just like it. And that's the problem, because we're so stuck in our little tiny incestuous world of like lyric people or producer people. We forget sometimes that the real audience doesn't know why they like something or not. They just like it, which is complicated. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it almost seems, you make it almost seem like there is this curatorship, which is the LA scene of A&Rs and artists and songwriters and producers. Mm-hmm. And if everyone is on board with a certain song, they're like, this can be a hit.
Yeah.
You can release this can be a hit.
Yeah.
Then it gets out there.
Yeah.
And it's like thrown on the world stage.
Yeah. It's
going to be taken to radio or not. It's going to just stream like or not. Or sorry, pardon my
sorry, yeah. Do I have to stop that sentence? Sorry.
And then the audience will like it, and they won't know why.
Well, so we talked about this before you guys came in. That's why TikTok is the new equalizer. Because you don't need a huge label anymore to have a giant hit. Labels now look at TikTok and say, what do people love? And
they chase instead of making the songs, they chase.
Yeah, instead of curating what people are supposed to like, which is like the 80s and 90s mentality, you have a big A&R guy or a big record executive who thinks he's the man because he has a giant ego because he got lucky once before. And then he says, the kids will love this because I, decreed it to be so. And now it's the other way around, where TikTok as a collective decides this is cool. Why? I don't know. Someone made a funny video on it and everybody wants to do it, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's all very chaotic. But at least now labels are chasing the TikTok thing. ABCDFU, for example, didn't become big because a label said, I'm going to put 10 million on this. It's because TikTok decided it was funny. And then everyone decided, oh shit, well, I guess let's take a chance on this ABCDFU record because TikTok likes it. But again, there's like 100 songs every year that blow up on TikTok, and only one of them is ABCDFU. Why is that? No one knows. But at least the A&Rs are chasing TikTok now. They're chasing the audience as opposed to decreeing what is cool. Except for like K-pop, but that gets complicated again. Because Butter isn't that great of a song, but they just put it on the world.
What about Dynamite?
Oh, I hate this song. It sounds like it's made for 8-year-olds, right? And everyone knows.
That's the audience.
Yes, unfortunately, yes. Everyone knows that song is trash, but also it made so much money. for David Stewart and his wife and the guy who produced it, or I think that's David Stewart. One of my best friends in LA wrote Butter, right? It made him like $10 million. It's stupid. But it's $10 million of the South Korean tourism money. It's actually like South Korea created that song by just flooding the entire world with it, because to them, it's also politics. It's international outreach through BTS.
Totally.
Right? You create how do you say this? You create international goodwill by having BTS being so famous worldwide that everyone loves Korean culture now, right? And then they either want to go to Korea or they want to buy Korean products. So it makes sense they created BTS, like by pure force of money, right?
Yeah, they have like an audience which is called an army. They call themselves an army, so that already says enough, you know. Like,
Yeah.
And we wouldn't hear Korean-made songs on the radio in the Netherlands until BTS basically. I never remember.
Or Blackpink or any of those groups.
Blackpink, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, in LA, what's funny, obviously, is no one gave a fuck about K-pop until 5 years ago when BTS was the thing. And now all of LA is salivating over K-pop because holy shit, the money you can make is crazy. Right? So now I do it too. I'm shameless, I don't care.
Come on, it's your job. You should, if you cannot make money on this stuff, you would have to stop. So that
Yeah.
by all means.
And I like the music. A lot of the times they do like more jazz inflected, funky music, which I kind of enjoy. That's where I come from anyway.
Yeah, it's fun. And they experiment like hell. Like they have songs that are, they have 4 bars of trap, and they will have 4 bars of country,
Well,
and they will have 6 bars of...
That, yes, but that doesn't get made in LA because no one knows how to do that here.
Okay.
Here, I mean in LA.
Yeah, LA.
That's some K-pop specific shit, and there's Korean producers that like make that their thing. You can't, no one has the time to make that stuff in LA because you can't pitch that to anywhere besides K-pop.
Exactly.
Right.
You send it straight to the...
It has to go to Korea because that type of joke only works over there.
Yeah.
Right, and in LA, they come to us because we have a sound. We have like an international allure. Would that dude work with Lil Wayne bros to like get him in the studio or something? I don't know. And then they just use the credits of writers and producers to say this group should work with blah blah because he did blah blah, right? And then we just do what we normally do, and that has the international allure. It's not any better than they could do in Korea because they're fucking incredible over there. It's just international, it has the American touch, whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah, the A&R will have to present it to his boss and will say, did you get a song from LA?
Yeah.
Or
Did you get a song from the guy who did blah blah?
Yeah.
And then politically it's a lot easier to get it through the door than a nobody writer that did nothing, but it sounds really good. Unfortunately, that's the value of it.
Yeah. Also,
Sorry.
pardon me for
Does that make
saying,
sense?
pardon me for saying his. There are huge, very influential women working in all of these positions. So,
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me?
The most amazing A&R ever.
The
is
best
a woman,
writers,
actually.
right now the best writers in LA are all girls.
Ali Temposi, you told me about. You love her work.
Yeah, she's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, there's so many I can't even count.
No.
A lot of the execs are still white dudes, for sure.
But it's also changing.
Yeah, slowly.
Yeah.
Right now at Atlantic, the A&R that we all try to like work up to and try to get in with is called Gina Tucci, and Gina has the biggest in the room easily. You know what I mean? Again, sorry, but she's a boss, and you have to play to Gina. And if Gina says yes, then it goes, and if it doesn't, if Gina says no, then you're. And it doesn't matter how many A&Rs love what you do. If Gina says no, then the whole thing is dead. So Gina is like boss lady supreme at Atlantic at least, or at least for a specific section of Atlantic. But that's a section I work in a lot, so we all have to like get Gina on board. You know what I mean? And that's fine, because that's her job, and she has an incredible track record. So yeah, it's more and more, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I was thinking to do some more listening.
Sure.
I have actually 2 songs that you can pick one from.
Sure.
Depending on what you would like to say about it. One is named Sideways by Elenium, for which you won a Grammy nomination.
The record did not.
But the record holds the song that you wrote,
Sure.
co-wrote, so that's amazing.
It's kind of a boo-boo Grammy because it means like 100 people got a Grammy now. But yes, I'll still take it. It looks good on my
take
bio.
it, please. Don't be so bescheiden, you know. And the other one I was thinking of is Where the Lights Are Low.
Yeah.
Really. Why?
Because, and it's still a thing, flipping old records is kind of, it's the lowest common denominator trick that you can play, right? So, and it still lives in LA, less
What is flipping?
London. So, flipping an old record means you grab the chorus of, Crisscross Amsterdam, the artist, right? They built their entire career on old songs that they then put a new lyric on and then put new verses on, and then, the every time we touch, you get this feeling is now on the radio, right? But it's in Dutch, right? It's kind of cheap. Not that they are cheap, because they're really nice guys and I know them, but the trick of doing that is interesting when someone does it for the first time, and then when everyone does it for the next 5 years, it becomes like such a cheap move. And I did it too. So I did a song by Gigi D'Agostino that we flipped 2 years ago with my buddy in Amsterdam, Joran, who does a lot of the stuff for Crisscross. We did 2 songs in one day because there was a moment in Dutch and in London as well, in Dutch music industry, where when you go to a session, they're like, all right, what are we doing today? And you're like, what do you mean? Like, what song are we flipping today? It's just, everyone does it because that's where the money is, except it just feels a little cheap.
Like half of the songs that are released now that are on the radio are
Yeah,
flipped.
because they're written 2 years ago, right? And that was during the time that everyone did that. And I did it too because I was visiting my parents and I worked with Jordan for exactly 2 days. And both of those songs are coming out because everybody wants this shit, you know what I mean?
If you look at it if you like zoom out from this whole process, like you think, okay, people are in pop music, they have to make money, there's a lot of money to be made in pop music.
Yeah.
If you have a chorus that already proven itself in the 80s or the 90s,
Yes.
and you have the audience which knows it from the 80s and the 90s, so like my generation, I'm a dad, I have a daughter who's 12, I know those melodies, I love them. I think, I like this flip or I don't like this flip, but I'm an audience for that song. My kids are an audience for the song. They don't know the melody, but it's super catchy, so they like it anyway. They don't know why they like it. Again, what we said. So is it like you just have a twice as big audience when you do a flip?
Yeah, but you also lose publishing. And this gets into complicated things about percentages and whatever. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Basically, you have less ownership. So if a song makes $1 million, and I own 100% of it, I get $1 million. If you do a flip on a famous record, you get like 2%, right?
You're part of a master or something, probably.
Not even. No. You want the 2% because 2% of $1 million is 20 grand. So you still want the 20 grand, right? But it's not the same as getting $1 million. So when we did those songs, where the lights are low, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
You'll hear it. Obviously, I'll play for it. You'll hear it, you're like, come on, really? And I'm like, yes, really.
But let's be honest, the top line is amazingly catchy and clever and has this...
It does all the things that it's supposed to do.
That's what it says on the tin.
It does all the things that it's supposed to do. And I'm happy that it came out. I'm not trying to downplay all the people that worked on it. I'll downplay on myself because that's what I do for a living. But I don't want to downplay everyone else that was part of it because they spent a lot of time on it. I only spent 2 hours of my life doing this and then I f***ed off. And then they spent a year producing it and re-recording it and producing it and re-recording it and producing it. And then I'm in LA, they tell me, hey, by the way, it's coming out. I was like, what? What did we do again? Oh yeah, I spent 2 hours of my life on this, which is why I deserve the least amount of publishing, right? I got like 2% because I barely did anything. I barely spent any time on it. So I'm glad that my name is on it because it looks really good. But I don't really feel like I have ownership on this song.
Some of the lyrics must be yours.
The lyrics are still mine, but again, it's 2 hours of my life. You know this song.
I'll keep it secret.
Not this version, but you know the original remix. Legendary classic record.
Something done tonight. So many reasons. Oh my, we should know better. Not talk about sex, but I don't wanna stop it. No. If I'm being honest, whoa. I've been thinking about you every night, every day. I can tell your body feel the same. Put our hands in places we don't want them to know. Come and meet me where the lights are low. I've been thinking.
Okay, you know the song, right? At that point, my biggest contribution to the song is not that I wrote the lyrics or I didn't. The idea, the fact that I brought this idea. Hey, what if we do the Gigi D'Agostino song? And they're like, oh my God, no one's done that yet. Check. No one's done that yet. What the fuck, right? That's as far as it goes. Every time someone does that, you're like, all right, who's done this one last? And you go to a website called whosampled.com, and then you look at Someone did this in 2010. Yeah, we could probably do it again. Right? We can remake this, and people will forget that blah blah did it in 2011 or whatever. Right? And it just becomes a little bit. Listen, I'm not saying it doesn't work because Get Out has a huge fucking hit right now with Blue.
But someone did flip that song 4 years ago. Ella, I don't know, remember her name, with an acoustic guitar. Still, people acknowledge it as a thing on its own.
No, yeah, but that record was 5 years old, and then someone leaked it on TikTok and it blew up.
Okay.
Good pun. Blew up. Right, and it just blew up on TikTok, and then Atlantic was like, oh shit, we have to put it out now. You know what I mean? They never intended to put that one out because it's cheesy, and it is. But, you know, if something goes viral, then you have to jump on it. And now, congrats to, I think it's Louis Thompson who did it 5 years ago. Right, so, and then who was, I think Charlie XX is singing it? I'm not sure.
Right now, the new one.
Yeah, who's singing that?
David Guetta,
yeah, whatever, blah, blah.
whatever, Charlie XX.
Yeah, something like that. And it's, you know, in my mind, it is just as commercial as writing boy band stuff, which, you know, like NSYNC or Backstreet Boys back in the day. Like, everyone loves to hate on it, but holy shit, we can make a lot of money. So sure, let's do it.
That's a craft as well. Those were the rules. If you wanted to make money, have success, you would have to write for boy bands. And Max Martin did a hell of a job. And, and Ilya and the other person.
Does it make sense? Again, I ramble.
Let's listen to Sideways then, because that's an original song.
Yes, that is
that's
very
not a flip. That's something you guys did during the pandemic over Zoom.
Yes.
And you killed it because it's an amazing song.
That was the first song I wrote with Valerie, and usually, I don't know why, the first session you do with someone new usually ends up being really good. And I'm not entirely sure why that is, but whenever you work with someone for the first time, it's the nervous energy of meeting someone for the first time, or the fact that you don't really, you're doing more compromising. You're like, oh, I don't want to offend this person, so sure, let's go with your shitty idea. You know what I mean? A lot of times what happens is, and it was the first time the three of us worked together, it was David Arkwright, Valerie, and me. In the meantime, all three of us have gotten lucky. Valerie does a lot of the Kygo stuff. She's on tour constantly. David Arkwright did Build a Bitch for Bella Porch, and now it's a fantastic song. And now is doing a lot with Anita and with Saweetie, because he got signed through that song. He got signed to S10 Publishing, who are basically the label behind Normani and Saweetie and Anita and all these people, right? And then I did decently well with EDM stuff, apparently. But that song wasn't written to be Millennium at all. It was supposed to be a sync record. It was supposed to be for like a TV show or something. Because the other thing that Valerie does, half of her career is sync. And by sync, I mean like folksy, pretty songs to be in the background of like a TV show. There's a whole industry of people that make so much money doing that. They can ignore the entire pop industry, the entire rat race, all that bullshit. They can ignore it and then just do that and make way more money than all of us.
I started doing this work a month ago.
Do it.
For Massive Music, and I see the speed with which people work.
Well, that's it, yes. It's a different world.
You will get an assignment to create an original.
You got 4 hours.
You got 4 hours, and you have to compose, record, mix, master, send it to them.
My brother does that for a living. Yeah. So that is a completely different industry and a completely different conversation and a completely different world, and there's way better money than what I do. In my world, if you have a number one, you buy a house, but for the rest you're broke, right? You are broke until you're rich as fuck, and it's very, very strange. I don't think there's a lot of industry where, like, on Monday you can be broke and not pay rent, and on Tuesday you can be a millionaire. But that's how my industry works.
But
it's hilarious.
To put it in perspective, you are making a living as a songwriter.
I'm fine
for years.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, I'm completely fine. Because I found a middle road between, if you work enough in Korea and Japan, and if you do enough EDM bullshit, not bullshit, but like songs, then sorry, I'm really jaded and all that stuff. I'm sure you know this. You can make rent and you can make a decent living, and then you keep chugging away on getting that stupid number one, right? And then you can buy a house, and then you do it again, and then you can buy another house. I have a friend of mine, his entire business model is every time he has a number one, which he does often because he's a fucking asshole, he buys another house, and then he rents the other one, and then you build like this is houses in LA.
Real estate portfolio.
You rent like a building until he's too old and he's not cool enough. And then at that point, he's just like a landowner. He's just a landlord for a living.
Smart game.
Yeah, smart game if you can get it. All right. What's the song called? Oh, yeah.
Sideways.
Yes, Sideways. I can play the demo too, which is way more interesting. Millennium. Not because it's not the Millennium version isn't interesting, I think it is, but if you listen to purely the song and you don't listen to the noise that goes wop wop wop, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find the original.
On the dashboard, I can see that your heart is breaking. I wish I could fast forward, take all your pain and erase it. Feet on the ground, feet on the ground. And even when we're upside down, round and around, but we'll never fall down. If the world is going sideways, I know my place is here with you. When all our good nights turn to dark days, I know I'll stay next to you. When your heart's stuck in million, when your sky is running out of blue, when the world is going sideways, I'll be sideways, sideways here with you. No, sideways here
Womp, 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 womp.
Oh, please, you're killing him.
Oh, really? Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Which is
for
really
me,
good.
for me, when I first heard it, it was
Yeah.
like a WTF moment, you know, like
Nice. I'm glad.
yeah, it's like
It's so weird when there's people on TikTok or on Instagram like showing like tattoos with the lyrics of this song like that they put on their arm because for some reason it meant a lot to them, and that's very nice to hear. When we did it, it was another song. Again, it's just I don't know. Do we like this? Sure. Do we not like it? I don't know. We wrote at least 30 songs since, and none of them did anything, right? So it's not like this magical trio of us are having this incredible success. No, we just got lucky ones. I'll play the original, which is still pretty good because the guy who wrote it was a really good producer. But
Converse on the dashboard, I can see your heart breaking from the passenger seat, and wish I could press fast forward, replacing all the parts you hate with new memories. Feet on the ground, feet on the ground.
I forgot to be at rewriting.
Even when we're upside down, round and around, but we'll never fall down. If the world is going sideways, I know my place is here with you. When all our good nights turn to dark days, I know I'll stay next to you. When your heart's gone million, when your sky is running out of blue, when the world is going sideways, I'll be sideways, sideways here with you. No, sideways here with you.
Same vocal though. Yeah. So the vocal that they used for that record was the exact same one we have for the demo, which she recorded in her bedroom on like the shittiest gear ever because she doesn't have any good gear. Well, she does now, but back then it was just like an SM into a laptop because who cares, right?
but
And
they
then
produced and edited the hell out of it.
Oh, hell
right,
yeah.
on the finished
they worked
thing.
their ass off to make it sound really good.
Yeah.
But a lot of times they just, the way it worked is I sent it to my publisher sent it off to Elenium's team. Elenium's team said, hey, we like it, can we have the stems? And then we hear nothing for a year and a half. And then they said, hey, by the way, it's a single. Huh? And now all of a sudden it's this entire thing, right? But for us, we were already 300 songs ahead and didn't remember any of it. And there was like a year period where people were like, hey, are they going to do it? I don't know. Wait, I thought they were going to do it. I don't know. Can you check? We haven't heard anything. They're not responding to us. We don't have nothing. No one's talking to us. And then all of a sudden, here's a contract, sign it. And we're like, what's going on, right? And that's a lot of times that's how it works. We just don't know what's happening, and we don't know if it's any good. I think we pitched it to a bunch of people. Everyone said no, right? And then, again, you just don't know what's going on. You just have to make more and more and more, and then just spread it out like dandelion seeds. And one of them is going to land and sprout a little flower. Oh, that's so cheesy.
Yeah, let's say we were talking about the luck factor, I guess.
Yeah.
When it came out, we still had a pandemic, and the lyrics are super.
Yeah.
Everyone can relate. Like, hey, we're going sideways.
Thank God it was still a pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Hey,
All those people. I was going to ask like some separate questions about the whole topic of the technique of writing these songs, but now I'm listening to this lyric and we can clearly make it out. There's some super clever phrasing going on.
Oh, you want me to grab the Google Doc? Because I forgot the lyric. I can grab the lyric.
She's in a certain meter, a certain way of phrasing, like there's things are repeated.
Probably.
And then you have this thing like da 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 da, which is like has a different, falls differently on the beat, let's say. So is this whole idea of what Max Martin dubbed melodic math, is that a thing for you guys, or do you do this by intuition?
Intuition. It's all intuition.
Someone just yells that at the right moment, and you're like, hey, yeah, that catches, that works.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. If you talk to Swedish writers, they're way more like meticulous about like, well, the math says the blah blah, and in LA, no one gives a fuck, right? So it's interesting. Like, in it doesn't mean it's any better. It's just I've worked with a lot of Swedes, and they'll literally do a melody that they love, and then they'll find words to fit in the exact syllables of the melody, and it's very constricting. And in LA, usually you just have a melody that kind of works, and then when you work on the lyrics, all of a sudden you just start moving things around, whatever. This lyric, sweet. That sounds good too. Let's do that. It's way more loose. A famous story that Max Martin has is that, for the Blinding Lights record, for The Weeknd, for example, and all of the Weeknd stuff that Max is doing, they'll produce it, write it, vocal produce it, entirely do it on syllables only, and then once it's all done and it sounds like a hit, that's when they start putting words in it. But the words have to fit the syllables that sound the best. So you get lyrics that don't make a lot of sense, but they sound great, right? And that's only Max Martin gets away with that, because he's the legendary mythological creature that's Max Martin, and people will trust him when his process is so meticulous and frustrating. So yes, there's a way of doing the math thing, right? It is the Max Martin math, but also everyone's doing this so much because you have to understand, I write 200 songs a year. I write one song a day, 6 days a week, right? If you do that often enough, the process just becomes internalized. You don't think about it anymore. You just do it. Like it, sweet, let's move on. I don't like that. Why? I don't really know. Because I've done it 10,000 times at this point. And everyone that I work with has a certain amount of experience that they just know that works. Why? Let's not talk about it too much. That doesn't work. Why? Let's not talk about it too much. Everyone kind of agrees.
There's a rule that another songwriter told me, Ramon de Wilde, and he said basically every section, 4 or 8 bars, in which 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 phrases of singing will happen. The first phrase of the section will either start before the beat, before the one of the bar, or on the beat or after the beat.
Maybe.
To make the thing catchy. Well, what other options do we have?
Repeating it until you die.
Repeating until you die. Okay, around the world, around the world, around the world, around the world for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, but what he said, what works is changing between these. So you have a certain section. So what I heard here in this song is like they're starting on the one, but they're also starting after. They're starting. So you're keeping also the listener, I think, on their toes, just following the song. Right? You don't know when the next phrase is going to start. It's not like you cannot predict it, so it keeps you interested. I think on a basic level, like if you don't even listen to the lyrics.
Allow me to make this more complicated.
Yeah.
That doesn't always apply. If you listen to Post Malone, for example, he doesn't give a shit. He just goes on and on and on and on and on, same thing over and over and over, right? So it doesn't mean that that's the rule. It's just a rule, and if that works in the moment, then you use it, and if it doesn't work, then you don't use it.
So you just use whatever will work for the song.
I only apply rules when I'm annoyed with something and I don't know why. Oh, it doesn't work. Why? Let's think about it. Okay, is it because everything starts in the one? Okay, let's change that. Or is it because we keep hitting the same note? All right, let's change that. Or is it because it's just a stupid lyric? Probably. Okay, let's change that. But if something works, then I don't even think about it. I just move on, right? And it doesn't mean that I'm right as well, because I don't like most of Post Malone stuff, and that makes me sacrilege. Right? Or I don't like Drake that much, but it makes me sacrilegious. Doesn't mean I'm right. I just personally, I don't really give a fuck about it. But when you look at the amount of numbers they create, obviously they're right. Because, who am I versus the entire planet, right? In the end, whatever works is the rule now. So if all of a sudden, the Yin Yang Twins do a whisper song, which you could never get away with normally, all of a sudden, that's the rule now. So let's start doing whisper songs. It's funny. But you can only do it once or twice. You know what I mean? Or all of a sudden, Talk Dirty does like, does a klezmer drop, right? You can get away with that exactly once or twice, and then it becomes boring again.
You had a song with an accordion drop.
I did. That wasn't my idea. I thought it was hilarious, though. I thought it was funny.
It is a hilarious moment among the music.
But you know what I mean? Like, yes, there's math and there's rules in songwriting, and everyone kind of knows them, and that's why no one is like in huge fights, and no one is bad. I mean, being a bad songwriter means that you don't know what you're doing, and you're taking chances based on ignorance, as opposed to taking chances based on experience, right? That's a very vague statement. So, how do I explain bad versus good? Good versus great is that you'll spend your entire life doing that, but bad versus good takes about a year. Because I used to teach Berkeley. I used to teach songwriting at Berkeley. If someone sends me a really, really bad song, it's because I know they're not doing it on purpose. You know what I mean? And I can tell because the phrasing is awkward, or the melody keeps hitting the same note, and you're just getting so bored by it, you know what I mean? But then someone has a huge #1 radio hit with a song that says, I hate you, I love you, I love that, I hate you. You just want to shoot yourself, right? But it's a hit, so who am I to say it's bad? It's probably not so good, but it's also a hit song, so obviously I'm wrong and everyone else is right. Which is when it gets complicated when you're trying to teach songwriting to someone, because there's always an example of someone doing exactly what the hell they're doing wrong in class and having a huge hit with it. So, I don't know if that helps anything. Does that make any sense? Is that useful in any way, or am I just making this more complicated?
That makes sense. The point is that there are no rules, right?
There's rules until you break them and they work.
Yeah.
And if you break all the rules and all of a sudden you have a hit song, then that's the new rule.
So you just have to go for what sounds good to you.
To you in the moment.
Okay.
And that gets annoying because obviously I want to be a good writer. I want to be a better writer. I want to always get better, right? But if being better isn't the same as getting a higher grade in math, right? There's a finite way of getting better in a certain thing. You know what I mean? I can get an A in my exam. Sweet, that's better than a B. But in music, that means nothing. So if you get lucky with a shitty song, then now that's cool. And everyone's doing that now. And it doesn't mean it was a good song to begin with, you just got lucky with it. Does that make sense? Yeah. But generally, everyone knows what they're doing. And because they know what they're doing, they're taking less risks. And taking risks usually is where the fun stuff is. So I have to push my co-writers a lot of times, like, hey, let's do this thing that you wouldn't want to do because it's a bad idea, right? Let's try it. Let's try something shitty. Let's try being bad today, and let's see what comes out of it.
This is actually a question that Carlos posed for you. So it touches directly on what you're saying right now. In how far, when you're sitting down with someone to write in a session, are you trying to stay within the norm of what pop music sounds like, and where do you try to add something? Maybe can you like phrase it like you did because it was better?
don't know what I said.
Ask about the norm and the role of the norm and the
Right.
role of authenticity or not authenticity, but bringing something new or taking chance or just going outside of the known path, let's say.
Right, so we could say that there are standards that are out there. That's what makes songs recognizable as the kind of songs they are.
Sure.
So there's roughly speaking, there are punk standards and there are ska standards and there are like happy pop, right? And then you have all these styles, and that's kind of the starting point. But that seems to be insufficient for a song to go anywhere. So it's got to be. Do you remember Cindy Crawford?
Sure.
Yeah, like beautiful, but with a mo. So you kind of need that thing that is out of the standard, that pushes it a bit, or what are your thoughts about it?
So people are flock animals, right? They love to band together, especially when you're 14, 13. You don't have a personality, so you build a personality based on the people that you associate with, right? One of those things is fashion, the other one is music. So if you are a skater, in my age, because I'm old, there was skaters versus chubbers. Back when I lived, right? You were either a chubber or you were a skater, which means you listen to one type of music versus you listen to another type of music, which means that there is a homogenous amount of things that you associate with. And if you know that subgenre, skater, whatever it was, like punk music, we listened to direct, for example, right? So if you know that world, if you know what direct does, or Creed, or Offspring, or any of those bands, there's norms that everyone kind of agrees with, because you don't want to be too individualistic, because you're 13, you don't have a fucking personality, right? You love what everyone else loves. So then, as a writer in this case, I have to know those norms and then break them a little bit. So it's a fresh song for direct. It's not a completely different song. It's not a metal song all of a sudden. It is direct in a new direction. But people have to understand that it's a direct thing with a fresh face on it, as opposed to, oh, that's a really shitty metal song. You know what I mean? So if you know for example, in K-pop at the moment, K-pop is very, very tight, and you're only allowed to do a few things, right? So the question is, how far, as a creator, because my job is to do fresh things, not good things. Good is boring, fresh is interesting. If you want to push K-pop into a fresh direction, first of all, you have to know what they do, what the norms are, and what you're allowed to do, and what is currently cool in K-pop, or even with a specific band, with BTS or NCT 127, or they're all the same anyway. Sorry, no disrespect. They basically all do very similar things. Once you know what that is, then you can start pushing a little bit. And some genres you can push a lot more. EDM, you can push a lot. You can do some really wacky stuff, and people still think it's EDM.
What part of the song do you push? Are you talking about lyrics? Are you talking about
No. Well,
stylistically or
stylistically? Lyrically, it's all very similar, right? But stylistically, are you going to do a record in 3/6 all of a sudden, or in 3/8? Sorry, 6/8. And you do that in a funny way. Then you get, I did a record for Black Bear that was a 6/8 record, right? And it's because he's never done that before. All of a sudden, it's interesting, right? But it's still a Black Bear record. He still talks about being angry and white. You know what I mean? So, sorry. It was a joke. It's not true. He's very, very good at what he does. But you give him something that he hasn't tried before. And it was like based on chords that were like classical music. And it's, you put guitars on it and you still produce it like a Black Bear record. And then all of a sudden it's a really hip Black Bear song. But then you're grabbing from something else entirely. When my publisher did Leave Before You Love Me for Jonas Brothers and Marshmello, right? It's still Jonas Brothers because they're singing it. It's still Marshmello because there's a drop. But they're grabbing from Wham, like aggressively from Wham. And it basically sounds like Last Christmas. But that's a choice. I think they have to give away publishing, but that's a very specific choice they make. Let's do something no one's done before, because no one's done that shit, because it's so fucking cheesy. But also, no one's done that, so it's fresh. And then they grab from that, and then they go, whoop, let's make a Jonas Brothers now. And all of a sudden, it's a really hip Jonas Brothers song.
Already to have Marshmello and Jonas Brothers sounds like...
It's a wacky combination.
Yeah, it's a wacky combination.
It is. But that's the thing that makes it fresh. So in pop music, when it comes to like top 40 pop, you can push a lot. So you can push pretty hard. In K-pop, you can't push pretty hard. You have to know where to push. All of a sudden, this has a funny sound in it, or all of a sudden the chorus isn't a huge chorus, but it's a little bit smaller of a chorus, or it's a little slower than usual, or there's no R&B progressions anymore, and now it's more pop, or whatever. You have to know where you can push to not freak out the label too much because they're afraid of change, but they also know that change is boring because then they lose their audience. So you have to constantly do this. And with Marshmello, you can do that because he wants something completely new. But you have to know who you're talking to and why you're doing it in the first place. That's great versus good. And then when you're bad, you just send him a song that's completely wrong for him and you don't know why. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Good is boring, as always. Good is a boring song that sounds like everything else. You're good at it, congratulations. You know how to write a chorus, congratulations. But no one gives a because they've heard it before, probably 100 times. And then bad is lucking into something cool, and great is doing it on purpose. Does that make sense? I'm trying to figure this out in my head. I haven't talked about this stuff in years.
No, because you're with people that like.
Because we never talk about it.
It's your work. You do it every day.
Yeah, we don't talk about it in those terms. We just do it, and then we kind of try to figure it out afterwards. Yeah.
I saw that we are kind of running short on time.
Uh-oh.
Shall we move to the part where you ask questions to Ben?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just shut me down when I talk too much because I ramble.
Wait, give me a second just to
You were first.
do this thing.
Yeah.
I'll do
So
the
I
thing.
wanted to ask you about like your focus on consumerism, like with your work.
I love it, right?
Because
Shameless.
yeah, because I feel like if you're coming from a funk and jazz background, I imagine that's a very tough. Like it would be tough for me, I think, to really focus on consumerism.
So
I feel like
no. Listen, I'll be very, very honest with you. Right?
On that, can I add a question?
Please.
What kind of music did you actually grow up listening to? Like,
Bill
what kind
Evans.
What?
Bill Evans. Jazz musicians. My parents are classical musicians. I'm upper floor. I came to the U.S. to Berkeley to Boston specifically because I thought I could do Al Green for a living. Right, and then they looked at me and said, "No, you want to be a professional writer, you got to write Britney Spears songs." Because that at that moment was what was cool. She's not cool anymore; she's old, whatever. But I'll be very, very jaded and honest in my answer. If you're broke long enough, you'll do whatever the it takes, right? And if whatever the it takes means writing a song that you don't really care about, but at least you have a job, then you'll do it. A lot of times, when I just moved to LA, I think I spent 2 years fighting against the industry because they're like, "But what about my art, bro? Like, what about what's in here?
Yeah.
Like, what about what I really want to do?" And then you can't pay rent. And then you realize that, oh my God, maybe I should just do whatever the industry wants me to do so I can pay rent. And then you think about it, well, as long as I write music for a living, I'm still pretty good. I'm still pretty happy.
Who gets to do that?
Right, exactly.
Not a lot of people.
I got lucky that I can do this thing, even if it's not exactly what I want. I can do this thing for a living, right? Because to me, that's why what I do is a craft and not an art. What I do, I make chairs, right? And I'm really good at making chairs. And every day I make a different chair. You got to sit in it so the bones work. But it's a little color. It's a blue chair today. It's a red chair tomorrow, right? I don't make cool art projects that I do because it's in my heart, right? And so maybe someday I'll make $1 million because some Russian dude wants to use it as a tax write-off, whatever, right? So very early on I realized that if I want to make a living off of this thing that I love doing, I have to play the game and I have to just conform and be cool with that. But there's always this little voice in the back of my head that said, if I have $1 million, can I stop this and finally do what I want to do? Yes, of course.
and will you stop? You think? And
I don't know, because I'm like so American now. McDonald's and a Coca-Cola, baby. Right? It's not even that I'm so American. It's just because I love the act of making music, regardless of whether it's something I would naturally listen to or not. I love the people I do it with. And they're all my friends, and a lot of them are very thoughtful and very kind people, especially the people in the background, all the egomaniacs out front, sure, whatever, but that's their life, right? I don't hate most genres. There's a few genres I refuse to do, just because I don't know how to do it, and I hate every second of it. But most things I kind of like making, right? Not because I grew up on it or because it's my ultimate art, but because I like the act of doing it. So then, all in all, I'm pretty happy. Even though I sound incredibly jaded, and I realize that. But that's how we all talk to each other. It's all just like, the world, man, that guy got it, you know what I mean?
but still, the process of making music, even though you make a music every day, so
Yes.
let's say, doesn't that become different, like under the pressure?
Yes.
Is it,
But that's why you have to love it, right? Because no one said that my industry is easy. It is not. It is hard.
yeah.
And if you don't love the act of doing it every day, because again, you know, you can see my portfolio. I write 200 songs a year, right? Which means that every day you sit there and do another song, and the day after you do another song, you do another song. Eventually, it just becomes a desk job. That's what it feels like. But then the fact that I love it so much means that it's more than just a job that you go to and go home and then finally do something you like, right? Because most people, when they work at a bank, for example, they go to work and then they go home. And then they're finally doing what they really want to do. But to them, their job is just a job. My industry doesn't allow that. My industry, your job is your life because there's too much competition and everyone's too good at what they do. This is my life. And if you don't actively love it and don't know how to do anything else.
You leave within 3 months, probably.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah. It grinds you down to your bone.
Yeah.
I don't have any other skills. I know how to do one thing and one thing only. I've never had a real job. I've never had a desk job. I interned at a company once and I walked away within 2 days. So I was like, nope, done. Walk out. You know what I mean? I have one skill and I'm really, really good at it. And I'm very passionate about it. But it also means I have to be realistic about what my industry does and what I have to do in order to get to the point where I could hypothetically do an artsy-fartsy album that no one will care about because it's within my heart, bro. You know what I mean? That's just the reality of it. As long as I work with people that I love, and if it's an industry, if it's a style that I don't really care about, but at least I've had a fun day today, I can say that I had a good day. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Listen, I used to be 19 as well, right? And I was like, let's just go to the world and like love me for my art. And then you realize you step into this machine that doesn't give a unless you make them $1 million. And that's the truth. Oh, sorry. Am I breaking people's hearts, or is this like...
The other thing is like the alternative, which what I can talk about, but I shouldn't.
Yeah.
But it's like I did the art thing, and I found out that the music that I wanted to make with my friends in my band, which we did for 12 years, and we did a lot of shows, and we had 3 CDs, and was amazing from a musical.
Music.
Yeah, we made some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
No one wanted to listen to it. We got 2 songs on the radio, and one of the songs, it was Ben singing, and it was his lyric and his melody, and it made it work, you know. But we did inaccessible music for musicians only, in old meters, with sounds that already had been done, and it wouldn't sell. So we couldn't support the band being alive for longer than those 12 years. Once someone left, he wanted to make money, I wanted to have some success finally. So, and we all, so it's either you keep suffering and not making any money out of it and being like, become jaded in that sense, or you join...
I'll tell you the reality. The type of people that can make their art and not starve are from money. They got daddy money, like serious daddy money. They all live in New York, in London, in LA. I see them every day because I'm surrounded by them. Even in my industry, half the people that can do this for a living is because they haven't had to make rent for 6 years before they finally had a hit record. Right? That's the reality of it. It's not very fair, but no one gives a about you because the world isn't fair.
But I feel like ghetto music is also very...
Ghetto?
Yeah, like people from the ghetto who make music, I feel like they often...
Yeah, but you only see the successes.
Yeah.
Right? Out of every rapper that is Kendrick Lamar, there is 1,000 that are not Kendrick Lamar. You don't hear about them because you don't know them. Right? So it's easy to say some people can make it out of a bad situation financially, and that is very true. But you don't hear about the million other guys that tried and failed and are now having to support a family.
Well, maybe not worldwide knowledge, but I feel like maybe you can support if you are like known maybe in your country.
Say it again.
That maybe you don't have to be known worldwide. Like maybe you can just be known in your country. Don't you think?
Yes, but here's the problem, right? So yes, you're correct. You can have a career in music in something called the independent circuit, right? So the independent circuit, because my experience in my life is in the huge crazy machine that is top 40 popular music, right? It doesn't mean that there's not an entire industry, a huge industry in independent music and touring musicians. There is, I just don't know it very well. Or in sync, right, of people that do music for TV and trailers and movies, right? Huge industry. Or advertising. My brother is big in that world, right? So there is, and they're making probably more money than I do. right? That's just my experience is in this giant crazy machine in LA and in London and in New York and in Tokyo and Seoul, whatever. But if you go to any of the bands that I actually listen to, right? Those are not the bands in my world at all. Those are the ones that tour and have a very strong fan base that will buy their t-shirts and go to their shows, and that allows them to live. Wolfpack, for example, is one of the great examples, right? One of my favorite bands ever. No one knows them in LA, but they can sell out Madison Square Garden, right? They never have a hit record on the radio, but more people come to see them than Jason Derulo, because Jason Derulo can't sell fucking tickets. Or Ava Max can't sell fucking tickets, because no one cares about them. They just remember the song from that one time he was on the radio, right? But that doesn't help me, because I can't make rent writing for Wolfpack, because it doesn't hit radio. So I have to work with Ava Max or with Jason Derulo, because that's where the money is in my industry. Does it make sense?
Yeah, because of the producing side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I don't fucking love Wolfpack. I fucking love Wolfpack, right? And I will gladly come to see them whenever I can, and I will pay money to go see them and all that stuff. And they have a huge career outside of my very confined little world of top 40. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So just because all I know how to talk about is this machine, that doesn't mean that there's not a huge world outside of it that has nothing to do with me and that I love and adore, of course. Hopefully that makes it less constricting, that my life is like, you're allowed to do one thing and nothing else. You know what I mean? Because that's just happens to be my industry. Yes?
Yeah, you said you very much have your methods, like, okay, this works, so you do this method, and okay, this doesn't work, so I wouldn't go that road.
Can you give an example? Sorry.
Oh no, you mentioned something like when teaching, okay, this is how you write a good song.
Yeah.
You have your methods that you use, and you have things you avoid.
Yes.
But if you write 200 songs a year, how do you keep staying fresh when...
You don't. That's the problem.
Okay.
No, I agree. You don't get fresh. I bounce between artists a lot. I bounce between... No, I mean, that's the biggest problem. The biggest problem is that, and everyone does, when you work with someone who works as much as I do, the reason I work so much is because I don't know when I write something really good. And good... How do I explain this? 90% of a song is a lyric. Lyrics is the only thing that really matters, specifically in Nashville and in LA. Lyrics are really, really hard. A great lyric versus a good lyric is the difference between one word and another word. And unfortunately, you can't force it, so you have to just kind of stumble onto it. And because you can't force it, you have to write more and more and more and more, at least I do. Right? I have to stumble onto a great lyric. So if I write 200 songs a year, that means that 3 of them are going to be great. If I write 100 songs a year, that means 1.5 of them is going to be great. So I have to keep doing it. And then the problem is, yes, eventually I start repeating myself a lot. Stylistically, subject-wise, a lot of it. You know what I mean? And it's something I'm trying to work on. It's something my publisher said, listen, you got to stop writing as much as you do. You got to sit down and listen to music that is very different from what is happening on the radio. Just do the opposite. So I've decided actively to stop doing as many sessions, listen to weird music that has nothing to do with the industry, and see if I can pull from that and then stumble on a great lyric and also use an interesting style, because that makes it extra great. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I'm explaining it like I know what the doing. I don't. I really don't. I'm still trying to figure this out, because, the last thing you want is to burn out while you still have half a career ahead of you. You know what I mean? And if creativity and doing something fresh is the move, and also being good, I mean, you have to do both. It has to be fresh, but also great. Great meaning a great lyric, fresh meaning an interesting direction. Unfortunately, you can't make great, you have to stumble onto great, and doing it at the right moment with the interesting direction, that helps a lot. Does it make sense?
Yeah. Do you sometimes have something you think, okay, this is great, this is amazing, and this is better than all my other work, and no one agrees? Do you have that often? Or?
Yeah, all the time.
Okay, yeah.
That's unfortunate. Every time someone says, oh my God, is this a hit? I'm like, really? And every time I'm like, guys, this is the one, right? They're like, no. I'm like, because I don't know. And I'm trying to figure out how to start knowing. Right? The biggest songwriters aren't the ones that write the most or work the hardest, because I do both. It's the ones that know when a hit is a hit. And getting those ears is either magical or it's something that you can build. And I refuse to think it's magical because I don't think that's real, right? It's just something you have to build, so I'm going to keep building it. And eventually I'll hear it, and then I don't know why. I mean, I've heard from my team that I've gotten better at it, apparently. I don't know why, they don't tell me. They're like, yeah, you got better ears, bro. You stop sending us shitty songs. I'm like, I don't know what that means, but I guess thank you. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, this year specifically, I'm going to sit down more and listen to weird music and then try to pull from interesting genres, and then write a really poppy song on top of it, because eventually you still have to do your job. For example, the Jonas Brothers record, the Wham record, right? I hated it when he played it to me. He showed it to me a year before it came out. He's like, dude, this is a hit. I'm like, no, it's not. It's trash. It gives me the most half-chub I've ever had in a song. He's like, no, you don't know what you're talking about, bro. This is a hit. And lo and behold, it has 500 million plays on Spotify. Right? So obviously he's right and I'm wrong, and therefore I have to learn. And what I have to learn is, I don't know, how to not hate stuff that is Wham, I guess. I don't know.
Also, just because the Jonas Brothers and Marx were the two such big artists together.
No, it's not even that. No, because the song was cut by 4 other artists before it came out. It's not even that. I think if you do something that sounds like nobody, everyone can do it. That's a very strategic move. If you write a song that sounds like no one's done it before, then nobody is breaking their art by doing it again, or like compromising on their art. So, you know, if you do a song that sounds like tango, for example, no one's done tango. So let's do a tango song. Who the f cares? Because then everyone can do it. Add some more guitars, take some guitars out, whatever. You can make it anything. It's the reality is that pitching records, which is how that song got there. It was a pitch record that he did. He sent to Marshmallow. Pitching records is the hardest game in the book, because it's not just being good. Because listen, most artist songs, when you're with the artist, like for example Harry Styles, he's famous and his stuff is really, really cool, but they're not good songs, right? But it doesn't matter because it's him. They're not good in the way of like, oh my god, it's so clever, like that's the cleverest thing I've heard all day. No, but it doesn't matter because he did it and he loves it and he puts it out, and if people love him, so they come to the show, and then it's a hit song because it's Harry Styles. Being in that position is super, super nice. And I know a lot of writers that are terrible pitch writers because they've always worked with artists. And the artist says, well, yesterday my mom told me that my hair was shitty, and then you write a song about shitty hair, right? Whatever. That's not something you can pitch. It's a completely different world, a completely different game you play. You don't have to be clever. You don't have to do the whole, like, how do I break the fucking wheel with a weird song about, you know, with tango influence. None of that applies because you just get to do whatever the artist wants to do. And if you're friends with the artist, then you're in an incredibly powerful position. That part is hard because you gotta, you know, it's politics. It has more to do with who you're signed to and who you are friends with. And if your mom is cousins with blah, blah, you know what I mean? Then if you are a better writer. Being a better writer doesn't apply. But in my world that I work more in, because my publisher likes it that way, pitch writing, is all about what's the best thing this year. You have to be the best and the freshest and do it politically or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can I
is that really negative? Sorry.
No, it's good.
It's reality.
Yeah, it's
harsh
reality.
We weren't almost answers.
Can I interject a bit?
Oh, sorry.
Unfortunately, I have a kid to pick up from daycare at 6 o'clock in The Hague, so I will have to leave at some point. Would you guys prefer to continue talking to Ben, or do the tour to New Plaats with Lucas, or what shall we do?
Have I depressed you enough? Or are we
Well, we can.
Left, I don't know.
Yeah, please.
Well, let's say one more, and then we can continue the conversation as we walk around. There's a lot to see.
Can I leave you in the hands of Ben here? And make a run. Thank you very much. Ben, thanks so much voor...
Moet je vandoor?
Ik moet gaan helaas.
Oké, ja.
Of waar je mee?
Ja, is er een bus? Ik neem al bus.
Er is een bus.
Ja, neem ik die. Ja, zo.
Hey, bedankt.
Ja, natuurlijk. Ik zie je woensdag.
Ja, dus donderdag. Donderdag met Gia. Ja.
Ja, goed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rogier.
Oh my god.
Here, a big hand, please.
So perfect Amerikaans.
Oh my god, yes, my accent is so good. You've lived in LA for 12 years, like, oh my god, it's like a smoothie right in the face.
ja. Nee, ik ben er gewoon net. Ja, zie ik je donderdag.
Ja.
Sorry, let's keep talking, because how many people English here? Yeah, so let's just keep it in English. I'm way more comfortable speaking in English about this stuff. Before I'm in the US anyway.
I agree. Yeah, I have a question. I can imagine you have like countless of ideas and demos just piled up, saved up. Do you ever come back to those, or do you just
All the time.
right?
All the time. And I keep hearing, whenever I'm stuck, well, I do it two ways. There's one where if I'm stuck on a lyric, I go back to my old demos and steal lyrics from there, and then figure it out later, like who I can be publishing to, whatever. Or I go I was in London for a month, and there was all these like super long bus rides, like a month, like an hour at a time, to go from downtown all the way to fucking Ealing, whatever. And I started going through my email of like songs I did in 2012, and they're trash. But there's always these little nuggets that, you know, I forgot I did. So then you grab it and you redo it and you kind of sing it, and it's kind of fun. It's kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. I think now that I've had all this experience, I can hear it where the interesting nugget was when I did it 10 years ago, and where I failed hard at that time, but at least now I know why I thought it was interesting back then, and I can grab it and redo it in a better way. So yeah, it happens a lot. I think, you know, I can show you the portfolio. I'm at 1,600 songs, I think, in the last 7 years, right? Not all of it is really good, but every single time I did it, it's because there was a nugget of something that was interesting. Mm-hmm. And then you have to go back to it and be like, why the f*** did I spend the whole day doing this shitty thing? Well, there has to be something there, otherwise I wouldn't have done it in the first place.
Is that what you do if you feel like you don't have any inspiration, or you need something to kind of get like a spark in your...
Yeah, but again, like, don't forget, I don't do this by myself. I don't ever work by myself. It's always with 2 or 3, which means the combination of people together is what creates a spark. And even then, we just fail sometimes, and there's no shame in it at all. There's no shame whatsoever in walking away after 4 hours with nothing, because we all do it all the time, because we're all overworked. All of us are empty and drained out. You know, and then you take a month or 2 weeks off, and then you listen to a lot of music, and you come back fresh and with new ideas, whatever. And there's no shame at all. Everyone knows, and there's no problem. The best, I've worked with Grammy-winning superstar writers, and all of them suck just as hard as I do. Right? Everyone is just as bad. It's just, you know, sometimes you get lucky, and then you get more lucky, and then you get more lucky. I don't think I've ever met anyone who is like, oh my god, superstar songwriter, and like just poops out a hit. It hasn't happened once. Everyone is just as shitty as I am, or just as good as I am, however you want to see it. Yeah.
When you say like you work in teams of like few, is it only songwriters and producers, or does the artist also?
I prefer to be the artist to be there, right? And I'm doing it more and more. But there's, you know, it's a different world. Doing pitch writing, which is just songwriters together, you get to write different kind of things. You have to write different kind of things. When the artist is there, you end up writing whatever the artist wants to write. And, you know, it's stuff that is unpitchable. It's stuff that is bad, but the artist loves it, so therefore it's good. Or stuff that is so specific because yesterday she broke her leg and now wants to talk about a broken leg. Who the f*** wants to sing that? Except for him or her that day. Right? So, and that's completely fine, because at that point, when I'm with the artist, I am at the service of the artist. And if all she wants me to do is sit there and ignore me, fine, I'll still take my percentage. I've done those sessions, they're very weird. You're just like scrolling TikTok or like Instagram, on my case Reddit, because I'm on Reddit a lot. I just scroll Reddit for 6 hours. And I'm like, you good? Yeah, all right, sweet. I don't know. It's like a weird kick in the ego, because, you know, you're so active and like so like dominant in a writing session when you're with writers, and then this artist who, you know, granted is either famous or not, just doesn't want you to be there. Sweet. Well, I'm doing my job of supporting the artist at that day. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does. Do you have like from the people you've worked with, like artists that you've worked with, do you have like an artist that you really enjoyed your time working in? Like,
I did 3 days of Paloma Faith last month. Do you know Paloma Faith? She's this big soul singer in the UK. And because it's soul music, first of all, I love her more. That's where I come from. And because she's crazy. She's really, really fun and really hyper and she knows what the hell she wants. It's very artsy. It's never going to be a hit. But also, just love being there and making cool music with her and making stuff that I would never get to do otherwise. You know what I mean? I mean, those were really fun. That was a really fun day, or 3 days. And I get to say that, you know, I make friends with an artist that I really respect and I really love. A lot of times when artists are bigger, they're crazier, or they have more ego, so then you have to like cater to them. You have to keep the vibe light and tell them they're beautiful and all that funny stuff. Oh my God, you're so talented. It's crazy for me being here. I'm so blessed. Thank you. You know, that bullshit. In reality, it doesn't make for better songs at all. But again, like if it doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter. If Harry Styles puts out an album that's all good, and the production's really, really cool, but it has nothing to do with him. The production has to do with the guy who did it all. I think that's Kid Harpoon. He's a genius, right? Then yeah, then you know, I get to be a part of it. Same with the Rosa Lynn record. Like I get to brag about it, but I barely touched that song. Right, but my name is on it, so sweet. I get to say I did it, you know, and everyone respects me a little bit more for some reason. It makes no sense, but that's part of it. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know I sound jaded as hell, and I know I sound like, you know, I sound like a plumber talking about the ins and outs of plumbing. You know what I mean? But that's kind of what it is to me. I'm a craftsman.
And you're never like fully satisfied with your work. Like there's always like you can do more, and it's like okay, it was not perfect.
Talk to any actor, any writer, any director. You know, unless they're like bullshitting themselves for an interview, none of them are happy ever. Because it can always be better. It can always sound better. It can always be mixed better. It can always be sung better. But then, you know, when they go on like a victory tour because they have a big hit, they're like, whoa, I knew it was going to be blah, blah. But no, and behind the scenes, all of them are jaded and angry because they know it can be better. We're all obsessed and crazy in some way, otherwise I wouldn't be in this industry in the first place. Because it's not an easy one, and it's a constant, you're never good enough, and you're never doing good enough. So amongst each other, we're all just like jaded assholes, but it's really fun because you get to do it with a smile. You know what I mean? And we've been in this for so long, like we all know what it's like, so you don't have to complain anymore. We all know. Yesterday, yeah, you know what it's like, yeah, oh, harsh. Let's move on. You know what I mean? That's just part of it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
When do you decide that something is good enough to be sent out, or something is finished enough to use?
Oh, when do I?
When
other people tell me.
You know, it's always a process.
When other people tell me, because I don't know. I've noticed that if I find something really good, most people don't care. And if I don't think about it too hard and I find it's like forgettable most of the time, then I have to. So every 2 weeks, my team, my A&R team, listens to everything I've done, and it's usually like 10 to 12 songs, right? And then they send me a yes, no, no, yes, yes, no, no, yes, go yourself. You know what I mean? And I get a list. Joke. I get a list like that, and then once in a while there's a record there's one that says, "Oh my God," and it's always the one I didn't think about. It's always the one I found forgettable, right? But it was just the right amount of forgettable or whatever that they seem to think it's fantastic, and then they kick into gear, and then they start send it everywhere to every A&R and every manager and every president of whatever label, and then we'll hear a yes from one of them. You know what I mean? And then that's how it works. But it's never the ones I think. It's never the ones that I fight for. It's never the ones that I sit there for a week. You're like slavering away on this one lyric.
So why do you keep doing that? Why do you keep like working on something for a week if you know it's probably not going to be the one?
Because I want it to be the one.
Right.
And I'm not very logical.
That makes sense.
I want it to be the one. Because at this time I'm like, I think I figured it out. And this is the one that I figured out is great. And sometimes it is. Sometimes I get it right, and then it validates me. Like I did a record that I've been fighting for a year, right? And finally, Tom Grennan's A&R agrees. And I'm like, see, it's a fucking artist that I respect, a huge artist in the UK, A&R loves it. I'm right for once. And this has been a song that I've been fighting for a year, and no one else liked it, but I loved it, so let's prove them wrong. You know what I mean? And that's also part of it. It's part of the draw.
I just wanted to ask, what kind of programs or like instruments do you like to use?
Logic Pro, and I play keys and I sing a little bit.
Okay.
And that's all you have to do. Again, like, you know, I'm producing more and more, so you have to get more technical, but normally my job has nothing to do with any of that. Most writers that I know they're focused on writing only, they don't even know how to turn on a laptop, right? Hypothetically, they really don't know. So then you have to put a mic in front of them, and then they sing, or maybe not, and then, you know, they play guitar, or barely, you know what I mean? But that's not the point, because the job is not to be good at any of that stuff. The job is to write lyrics. And if they're incredible lyrics that don't know how to sing, they'll still have more jobs than I will ever do, right? That's really the real job of it.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you whether it's different to write a song from the ground up, or whether the approach to, for instance, top lining in EDM is very different. Because in EDM,
I quit top lining a couple of years ago.
Okay, yeah.
When someone sends me a track, I usually don't do it.
Yeah.
Unless it's like someone famous. If A-Lock sends me a track, I can do it. But it's constricting, and it usually never makes for great songs.
Yeah.
Great meaning, interesting and unique and fresh.
And at the same time, I wanted to ask you whether the approach to songwriting can be also applied to production, for instance. So you've been producing work.
Yeah.
How is your approach different for songwriting and writing lyrics? How's it different from, for instance, producing a track?
I don't know if you can combine the two. In my head, for me personally, I'm a craftsman when it comes to writing. I'll do whatever the fuck they need me to do. If they need me to write a big sad ballad about heartbreak, I'll do it. If they want me to write a K-pop song about balloons or whatever the fuck, I'll do it. So that doesn't really matter. I'm more of a whatever you want today. Production-wise, because I don't like, for example, I don't want to do MGK like punk rock shit, right? It doesn't mean it's bad, I just don't care about it. I can't sit there for a week and like obsess over hi-hats when I hate everything I'm listening to. Right, so production-wise, I end up doing stuff that I really gravitate to, which currently is like labyrinth, organic, cool UK shit, right? Or disco beats, or like kind of indie band, like organic shit, because I love that stuff personally. So I'll end up producing stuff that sounds like that, or I'll work with artists specifically because it sounds like that. Like, do you want to do? Because I'll send them tracks. Like, I've done these. Is this your vibe? Yes. Cool. Let's do more. I know how to do it, and I also love doing it. But writing-wise, I'll work with anyone. I've done MGK stuff. I've done like rock and roll bullshit. You know what I mean? Not bullshit, but I've done stuff that I normally wouldn't do, but it's my job. And I'll walk in and say, "How can I help you today?" Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But production-wise, because it's so much more of an investment, time-wise. I'd rather do it with something I love. I'm sure you know. Yeah, I'd rather do it with something I love than something that I can do in 2 hours.
You know, for instance, some people are producers who only produce songs, you know, and basically been saying that you write a song every day.
Yeah.
But some people have to produce a song every day.
Yeah.
Or
they're really fast.
But it takes much more time as well sometimes, you know. So how do they deal with that?
Because they're not original. So I'll give you an example. I went to something called the Ultra Camp in the UK last month, right? And what they do there, this is all EDM guys, right? There's all the guys that do all the stuff for Chesto and Guetta and what's his fucking Joe Corey and all those guys, right? So they're really, and these are all producers and writers, and they're really, really fast. And the joke is a little bit that you write like 5 songs a day, and then you kind of drink a lot, and then you party, and then you do it again the day after, right? You can sit there and agonize about a lyric for 12 hours if you want, but that's not the point, because everyone's kind of drunk and wants to have a fun time, so you just go boom, 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 right? Lyrically, it makes for 20 terrible songs and one really good one. I've noticed, and we've had one really good one. It's always the one I didn't expect, but everyone seems to love it, so sweet, I guess. Production-wise, it's always very, very rough. It's just enough to get the song out there. And these producers I work with are really fast. But they also keep doing the same thing over and over and over. It always sounds kind of similar. No one is experimenting with like, well, what if we like, grab this sample from like a 1960s solo record and go, boom. No, none of that. There's just chords, beat, clap, mix it well, done, next one. Because in the end, you're not there at that moment to do really creative shit. They'll do it on their own time. Because they do. I mean, everybody wants to be creative. Everybody wants to take a chance on something new. That's kind of the job. And they can, and then they sit there and they do. But a lot of times, there's just an industry for producers, specifically in pop music and EDM, that don't try to break the wheel. They just do a really good version of whatever exists. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But breaking the wheel is eventually, that's where the real job is. And everybody's trying for it, but it's really hard to do it when you have 20 songs a week that you have to do. Yeah, sorry.
Do you ever like write songs in other languages, or you only do it in English? Because you mentioned like I never listened to K-pop, but you mentioned K-pop.
So I don't. Yes, but it's hilarious because K-pop. There's one nice thing about K-pop. When 90% of my job is to be a lyricist in the US, right? It means I have to learn English first, which is a stupid thing to do. I shouldn't have done that. I should have been a producer. Then I could have a super strong Dutch accent and talk about beats all day and go boom, boom, baby. But unfortunately, I decided I want to be a songwriter, which means I have to be better at lyrics than everyone else. Right? So I had to learn English and then be better at it than 99% of the country. That took me 10 years. Stupid, stupid choice. With K-pop, I don't have to do any of that. I can be an idiot and just be a musician and do funny jazz chords and then sing it like 80 layers of nothing. You know what I mean? Like writing K-pop takes 30 minutes and takes 5 hours to record because you have to sing everything and do all the layers and then do like rap and then like you have to pretend to be 9 different guys. And then you take the song to a label and then they'll translate it by basically rewrite the entire lyric by someone who's in Korea in Korean. And then it take like 50% of publishing, which is unfortunate, but also that's fine, whatever.
Especially if you have more fun, it's worth it.
It's not even that it's fun, it's that the money is good.
Yeah.
I know that sounds super consumerism. But if you're trying to, it's for me, it's a fun day because I get to turn my brain off. Sweet. And I get paid. So yay. You know what I mean? It's in a very like crafty kind of craftsman kind of way. It's an easy job. It's an easy day. When they send you off to Korea and they put you in a 5-star hotel and you turn your brain off for 2 weeks. Are you kidding me? That's amazing. I love doing that stuff. And I just don't have to think about lyrics for 2 weeks. It's like, I can be honest, I can sleep through this stuff. It's amazing. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. No disrespect to K-pop, but it's for me as someone who does lyrics for a living, it is like a patient. And it's awesome. So I don't have to agonize about like, is this clever enough as a lyric? No, start over. You know what I mean? Oof. It's harsh.
Any other questions?
I have a quick
Yeah,
question.
please.
Do you still listen to music for fun?
I do, but it's never pop music. Because I'm working.
Imagine, yeah.
If someone turns on talk radio, all I'm doing is analyze, and I can't turn up. So I listen to like Bill Evans mostly, just classical music, jazz music, weird samba, weird Cuban music. What I do, like what people would think is like background, like kitchen music, basically, is what or like audiobooks. You know what I mean? But I can't listen to pop music because I would never stop working.
Right.
I can't turn off my head. It's terrible. Yeah.
Don't you kind of have to listen to pop music to see what is still happening?
Yes, and then I'm working.
Okay. Yeah.
So like if I'm driving to a session, I turn on Pop Rising or like New Music Friday. New Music Friday is pretty shitty most of the time. So like usually Pop Rising to see what everyone else is doing, and a lot of them are my friends. So I get to congratulate them or whatever. But to also know like what can't I do right now? Like what just came out? I can't steal this melody, or I can't do this thing because it's already been done. So like shit, I spent this whole month trying to figure out how to tango record. Someone just did tango. Fuck. You know what I mean? Now I have to find something else. But then I'm still working, and it feels like I'm working. It feels like I'm using my time to work. But if I really have to turn my brain off, it's anything but. Yeah.
So how do you avoid getting burned out eventually? Because staying consistent is such a key to what you're doing right now.
Because consistency is not the job. Yeah. You have to write 1 hit a year. However you get there, who the f*** knows? If I could sit there on my ass for 364 days, like this, and then get a hit at the last day of the year, then I would have done my job. But unfortunately, I don't. So I try to do more because I have to luck into it. I'm one of those people, unfortunately. But it also means that I can take 2 months off if I want to, and I do. Or take like a week off if I want to, and like go to Big Bear and just go camping and just turn off my head. My wife makes me do it more and more. She's like, turn off your phone, look at the fire. And then I sit there for a week looking at the fire. And hopefully by day 4, I'm like finally not twitching. You know what I mean? And that's very, very important. It is. But it's, I try. It's hard. I'm not the only one who's having a hard time with that. Yeah.
Because you have to write so many songs, so you feel like the 5-hour time limit is more restricting or more helpful to how you write?
It's a good one. A lot of times, less time. A lot of times, if you, I'm gonna say that. It's very easy to overthink. Like, is this good enough?
Mm-hmm.
What if we use that word, but go you flip it on its head, and then you know what I mean? And you start overthinking it 4 times in a row, and then you come up with a really shitty idea at the very end. A lot of times, I have a lot of writer friends that have this rule: if it's not good in 15 minutes, move on, right? Because they believe in first thought is best thought. I don't necessarily always agree with that, but it works for them. If their first thought isn't a great one, then they move on to a next idea. And if that isn't a great one, they move on to a next idea. And like Ryan Tedder, for example, is one of those guys. If it's not there within 15 minutes, then fuck it, start over, get some lunch, and then try again. Some people are very, very frustrated with that, especially writers that like to sit there and ruminate about their life or whatever the fuck, and then, you know, try to work their way backwards into a great idea or start with the verse. God forbid, terrible idea. Because then you never know where you end up. My publisher's similar one, Nick. He just, and he's ADD as hell, so he'll go like this, nope, and then everyone else is trying to keep up with him. You know what I mean? You take however long it takes to get there, and a lot of times putting a time restriction on you means that you just are okay with whatever it comes first. And a lot of times that's a good one. Maybe, or not, but at least you've done 4 today, and then one of them will be decent. Who knows? A lot of times also, a famous example is you do you take 5 hours to write a song, you did it in 4.5, and you have half an hour left. What do? Do a quick second one. See what happens. A lot of times that's the one that ends up being the one that people love, because you didn't put so much pressure on yourself to make it great. You just kind of went with it. And sometimes it's terrible, and sometimes it's really good, but there's no pressure anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So shall we wrap it up? By no means. No, but to take the tour around the facilities, Luca's gonna walk us around and tell us a bit more. But thank you very much. Please give a big hand. Thank you for being here. Greatly appreciate it.